Real Madrid dominated this match so completely that, according to Understat data, they generated nearly 2 expected goals to Girona's .47 and still couldn't win. That is the story of this game in one number. Nearly 2 full expected goals of superiority, 22 shots, 9 on target, a field tilt of 70.5%, and Real Madrid walk away with a single point. Football has a way of humbling the dominant, and this April evening in Madrid was a masterclass in exactly that. Before we dive into the tactical detail, let's set the scene. Real Madrid come into this match without a clear 5-game form run to lean on the surrounding fixture list, and the data is a mix of other clubs' results, which tells you the league schedule is congested and unpredictable. Girona, meanwhile, have shown they are a resilient, organized unit. Their last 5 includes a home win over Villarreal, a 3-0 demolition of Athletic Club, and a previous draw at the Bernabeu back in November. They know how to take points from elite opposition. They have done it before. This was not a shock, this was a pattern. Girona, under their current setup, have become one of La Liga's most tactically disciplined sides, and they arrived at the Bernabeu not to compete for the ball, but to compete for the result. Tactically, the formations tell you everything about each team's intent before a ball is kicked. Real Madrid lined up in a 4-4-2, a structure that, in the modern game, signals vertical aggression, dual striker pressure, and wide midfielders expected to cover ground in both directions. It is a system built for territorial dominance and quick transitions through the lines. Girona countered with a 4-2-3-1. The double pivot sits in front of the back 4 as a first line of cover. The attacking midfielder links between the striker and the 3 behind him. And crucially, the wide attackers in this system have license to press and block passing lanes rather than simply sit deep. What Girona built was a mid-block with teeth a shape designed to invite Real Madrid's build-up, absorb the pressure, and punish on the counter. The 4-2-3-1 versus a 4-4-2 is a classic chess match, one side trying to flood the final third, the other trying to make the pitch feel very small indeed. Now let's talk about how that actually played out on the pitch. Real Madrid's field tilt of 70.5%, meaning they had nearly 3/4 of all final third touches in the game, should in theory translate into an avalanche of chances. Their possession was 61%, substantial but not extreme. But here's the divergence that defines this game. Possession and field tilt are not the same thing. Real Madrid were not just keeping the ball, they were repeatedly driving it into advanced areas. 18 deep completions versus Girona's 6 confirms that. And yet, look at the progressive pass breakdown. Of Real Madrid's 80 progressive passes, 40 of them stalled in midfield, that is the zone at or below the 66% field line. Only 21 of their progressive passes actually reached the box entry zone. What that tells you is that Real Madrid were generating a U-shaped build-up pattern. Wide circulation, plenty of lateral and forward ball movement, but Girona's double pivot and disciplined defensive shape were consistently absorbing the central entries and forcing the play back out. The ball went wide, it went deep, it went back, and then it went wide again. Girona's PPDA of 20.5 compared to Real Madrid's 10.6 is the other key piece here. PPDA measures how many passes an opposition completes per defensive action. A lower number means a more aggressive press. Real Madrid pressed relatively hard. Girona did not press at all. They sat in their block and let Madrid have the ball in non-threatening areas. That was entirely deliberate. Real Madrid pressed relatively hard. Girona did not press at all. They sat in their block and let Madrid have the ball in non-threatening areas. That was entirely deliberate. The XG timeline brings the momentum of this game to life in a way the scoreline simply cannot. By the 15-minute mark, Real Madrid had already accumulated .193 expected goals to Girona's .048. By the half hour, that had stretched to .739 versus .116. At halftime, it stood at .878 to .19. Real Madrid were generating threat, but the first half remained goalless. The shots were arriving, but not quite converting. The second half changed that, and it also changed the tactical landscape. Real Madrid's XG jumped from .878 to 1.802. By the 60th minute, a massive surge, which is the period in which Federico Valverde broke the deadlock on 50 minutes, assisted by Brahim Diaz. That goal felt inevitable in the context of the XG buildup. But then, just 11 minutes later, Thomas Lemar equalized for Girona, assisted by Arnau Martinez, and from that moment, the tone of the match shifted. Between the 60-minute and 75-minute marks, Girona added .213 to their XG, the largest single-period jump of their entire game, showing that the equalizer was not an accident, but part of a genuine spell of pressure from Girona after pulling level. After 75 minutes, Girona generated nothing further. The final score reflected a match where the XG gap was enormous, but the actual goals came down to 2 moments, one for each side. Set pieces deserve a mention here too. Real Madrid generated .307 expected goals from 6 set-piece shots, that is roughly 15% of their total XG threat coming from dead ball situations. While the bulk of their danger was still from open play, set pieces were a meaningful supplementary weapon, particularly in a game where breaking down a low block through open play proved harder than the possession numbers suggest. In terms of individual influence, the XG chain and XG build-up numbers from Understat reveal who was really driving Real Madrid's attacking machinery, and some of the names might surprise you. Jude Bellingham leads all players with an XG chain of 1.305, meaning he was involved in sequences that generated over 1.25 expected goals. But his XG buildup of .829 tells the deeper story. Bellingham was not just arriving in the box, he was the connective tissue of Real Madrid's progressive moves, linking midfield to attack repeatedly. Dani Carvajal, operating from right back, posted an XG buildup of over 1.04, the highest in this metric among all outfield players. A right back as the most influential buildup player in the game speaks directly to that wide circulation pattern we discussed. Carvajal was the launchpad for much of Real Madrid's right-side overloads. Vinicius Junior's XG chain of .956 reflects his direct threat, while Brahim Diaz, who registered the assist for Valverde's goal, showed an XA of .668, the highest in the match, confirming he was the primary creative spark from a direct chance creation perspective. And then there is Dermelito from center back, with an XG buildup of .80, another defender contributing meaningfully to the build-up phase. Further evidence that Real Madrid's threat was being built from the back through wide channels. On substitutions, the pre-post XG data shows that Real Madrid's XG generating momentum effectively dried up after the 64th minute changes, with post-sub contributions sharply lower. By the time Aurelien Tchouameni and Ferland Mendy came on at 79 minutes, the match had settled into a state where Real Madrid were generating very little additional threat. The urgency to find a winner was there, but the quality of ball progression into dangerous areas had clearly decreased. Girona's substitutions tell a simpler story. They were managing the game, not trying to win it. So what does a 1-1 draw at the Bernabeu mean in the context of the season? For Girona, this is exactly the kind of result that defines a genuinely competitive campaign. They came to one of European football's most intimidating venues, absorbed nearly 2 expected goals of pressure, scored against the run of play, and held on for a share of the spoils. Their XPTS from this game was just .37, meaning the expected points model gave them less than half a point and they left with 1. That is elite game management. For Real Madrid, this is a dropped 2 points that will sting because the underlying numbers are so overwhelmingly in their favor. An XG of 1.99 against .47. 22 shots to 10, 19 key passes to 8. 3 high turnovers in Girona's final third to none. They did virtually everything right in terms of process and came away without the win. The one question this match leaves hanging is tactical. Can Real Madrid's 4-4-2 actually break down a well-organized 4-2-3-1 mid-block, or does the system need a more central overload to crack teams that defend this way? With 40 of 80 progressive passes stalling in midfield, the evidence from this game suggests the wide circulation pattern without a central playmaker to unlock the pivot is a structural vulnerability, not just bad luck on the night. Was this result simply fortune favoring Girona's goalkeeper and defender on the line, or is Real Madrid's build-up system genuinely vulnerable to teams who park a double pivot and defend narrow? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Hit subscribe, new football stories every day.